So guys, welcome to In Conversation With. Thanks for both giving up your time this evening to chat to me in our various, wherever we are, in our rooms. Gareth, it's nice to meet you, and Steve, yourself. Just to explain to the listeners, it's going to be a bit different tonight with two of you guys. It's the first time we've done that with three people in the chat, so the listeners can enjoy probably a very rounded conversation here. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, it's really nice to be on, Danny. And happy 4th birthday as well, by the way.
Oh yes, thank you. Yeah,
Progressive House
yeah.
UK.
That is, yeah. I've been busy this month, and it's one of those things, as you guys all know, when you're trying to do one set of things, sometimes you can't do them both. And I've held off on the birthday kind of quote unquote celebrations because I've been organising mixes with people. I know that they're busy and doing stuff, and yeah, it's just been a bit of mayhem. But yeah, what a great way to start the conversation, because you guys, as we'll find out, have been in the scene a long time, so it's nice to have you on board. So Gareth, we'll maybe start with you. Tell us a little bit about your history, how you got into the scene.
Yeah, sure, no worries. So I suppose for me, before I actually got into house music and clubbing, I was originally kind of into the Prodigy was my big thing as a kind of teenager. Got someone handed me a tape with music for the generation scribbled on it. I listened to that, and I'd say it changed my life. So it's probably the most influential kind of piece of music or album that I've that's affected me. So I would have started kind of going to festivals and things first off. The likes of the Glastonburys and the V festivals and stuff like that back in the mid 90s. And then for house music and clubbing scene, I grew up in Southampton, so Slinky's down in the Opera House was my mecca. On the Friday nights, we would get a coach down and would be there nearly every week. The late 90s, kind of 98, 99 sort of time, I reckon it was. And it was a great venue as well, because having the being an opera house, and everything that comes with it, from the acoustics and the space and the decor and everything. But the whole setup there, you had the main house room, you had all the big DJs playing in there, and then the second room was a drum and bass room, so you could be out dancing to Nick Warren or someone like that in the main room, and then had enough of the house, let's go and watch a bit of Andy C or DJ Hype, roll to a bit of drum and bass, and then switch back. So it was a lovely contrast. Really liked that, and I'd be like that myself as well. I would, I do have a sort of drum and bass break side to me as well, a lot, as much as I love progressive house and the like. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth. We would have gone up to Fabric as well a lot back then. And then that kind of culminated in going off to do the Ibiza thing in 2000. We went out to do a worker season out there. And yeah, that really took things to another level of being kind of engaged in the scene and everything that comes with being in the Ibiza scene, particularly back then as well. Very fond memories of Space and that Space Terrace and DC10, etc. So I would have come back from that summer with a small bag of vinyl as well, after going to the record shops and buying the tunes of the summer, etc. Got myself a pair of Newmarks, really sort of run down direct drives, first decks I could get my hands on just to play the records. So that's when I would have really started my first kind of venturing into DJing. I ended up going back out to Ibiza the second year then in 2001 for another stint at that. And by that stage I was hooked on it. I mean, I was at that point nothing more than a clubber and a raver, to be honest. But I just, as many of us who do DJ, and you just find like this missing piece of a jigsaw that in your world that you just fall in love with, and and I'd spend hours and hours in the bedroom there, just the same bag of records, but every mix would be different, because you could just find different ways of putting essentially the same records you had together and everything like that. And I never saw myself as getting into DJing, to be honest, in the first kind of initial years of clubbing, but I get like it sort of found me, I suppose, in a way. I wasn't that technically great to begin with, but I did have and this would have come from more experienced kind of DJs who told me this, friends and that they noticed that I had a way of kind of attempting mixes. Like, they were out of my range at that point, and ability, skill set, but they could see the ideas that I was trying to pin in certain transitions or putting certain styles together, rather than just going straight down a certain genre and just playing that one style. So that kind of encouraged me to stick with it. So we did it for a few years, and then at this point now I was living in Plymouth, so down in Devon. There wasn't a huge amount of clubs at that stage, but the space that we had, we could do outdoor parties. We had the Hoe there as well, so we would have done boat parties as well from time to time. And yeah, very kind of small local scale it was at that point. I went off traveling in the mid noughties then. Was away for a couple of years, came back, ended up having kids, and kind of thought everything passed me by that stage. I thought, I've had my moment in the sun. It's just one of those things. So, kids and everything now. And then sort of fast forwards to a few years back now, I went out again. I now live in Ireland, and I went to a party by private house party. They had Danny Howells and Nick Warren over to do a kind of, it was like a disused mansion out in Kildare. And it was my first time going out clubbing in years and years. And I went to it by myself and had the best night. And I was so engaged with the crowd, people like our own kind of age who were also kind of getting back into the whole scene. And it made me realize that not only the scene was still there, but I mean, this would have been like late 2017. And the music was really good as well. I mean, a lot of you who've been in it the whole time would testify to that there was a real kind of, the quality just got better, people were saying, and there was a lot of good music being made, lots of great artists coming out. So it was like history repeated itself. I kind of got back into going out again, and then I started DJing at the beginning of lockdown, because I had a pair of digital decks. I'd only ever used vinyl in my life. So I was trying to think, right, how do I use this tractor controller? So I got it out, dusted it off, started DJing again, realized that, you know what, I actually love it more than I ever did. And started doing some mixes, putting them out there by myself. Then got residency on Stereo Sounds. That kind of got me out there regularly on a monthly basis. And yeah, it was also a sort of culmination of meeting a lot of people as well at ADE in 2019. That was kind of just what was total lift off, and it's where I met Steve as well for the first time.
Yeah, so it's nice to hear. I mean, it's very concise, that, which is quite nice, because I think sometimes the difference, I guess, is that what essentially happens somewhere down the line is that first and foremost you enjoy the music, and then you want to experiment with it, and that's the change. The change is when you want to get your hands on it, or you either start buying records from somewhere, you give them music, and you start thinking, oh, I need more of this. It's like a need. And the difference when you start to buy decks and invest not only your money and your time is that, by and large, you are creating. It is much more difficult back in the day to create stuff when you're on vinyl, because, like you said, you've got a sort of mixed bag of records. You're trying and you are practicing. You don't play a set, you practice, and then you might want to record it, then you sort of play a set. But up to that point, it's just experimental. And everybody, I think, would probably have a similar story to you, where clubbing runs alongside your growing abilities or your growing passion for it. Because at the time, the explosion you were talking about there, the sort of latter 90s, everything had exploded. It was much more normal. Clubbing was very, very wide scape, but still then not everybody DJ'd. So I guess with Southampton, my wife's from Southampton, you know, Slinky was a known place. They did seem to have good stuff down there. You did have a good springboard. You know, there are people in more provincial towns that really don't have a lot. They really do have to travel somewhere else, but you had it pretty local. I'm going to pivot to Steve now, because Steve, I detected a Midlands accent there, so I know your story is going to be a little bit different. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about yourself.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for having us on again, Danny.
Absolutely.
Much appreciated there. And yeah, so basically, my kind of little story started music-wise. I was playing some guitar in a garage band in just after I left school. Kind of, we were rubbish, so we kind of gave that up. But it was around about 99 when electronic music, about 18. Got into electronic music, listening to the Essential Selection on Radio 1, 7 till 9, I think, Friday nights, Big Tongue, you know, just really enjoying that, but didn't really know anyone. My friends, they're all like indie people and everything, until a year or two later, when one of my friends actually met some friends with work who were going to Passion, and things like that, and God's Kitchen. My actual first clubbing experience, I think, was around 2000, Gate Crash at the NEC, the likes of Scott Bond and people like that, and Just Jules, and yeah. And then I went to a night of Passion. I absolutely loved it with Armin van Buuren. I really liked his style at the time, not so much these days, but you know, it was a kind of really kind of deep progressive stuff going on with the occasional, you know, banging trance tune. But yeah, really into Armin van Buuren at this time, like trance, because it was really an era of trance, wasn't it, from late 90s onwards. And then yeah, I mean, just after read about that, like 21, I think it was, borrowed a set of belt drive decks off a friend that didn't really work very well. Kind of had them on the floor. I had a little tiny flat, and I could fit them on the living room floor. That was it. My flat was so small at the time. I was like 19. We had some parties, and I was trying to do some mixing on these decks. And I was like, everybody was saying, you know, what's that? What are you doing? But I was still trying. I was dedicated. I didn't care whether how good or bad it was. Actually, in Cannock, where I live, they used to do a competition, DJ competition, and they had a vinyl DJ comp. So I went along, and that was the only time I've ever played vinyl out. Is when I did this competition, and it was confidence. I didn't have a lot of confidence at the time. Just wanted to get out there though and just play, just, you know, have that experience, you know, in front of a small crowd, and, you know, obviously I didn't win the competition, but, you know, it was just there, just having that experience. Just after that, I bought some CDJs. Then I wanted to go a bit more, you know, but just step it up and get a bit more serious. You know, locking myself in the bedroom, and like many people do, and just kind of just trying to work out how to mix on CDJs, and I think, you know, there must be a formula. It's digital, so I must know how to do this. So yeah. And just kept buying tunes on, you know, Beatport was started kicking off around then, 2004, and yeah, just was going clubbing at Passion, God's Kitchen. I mean, back to Armin again, but he was doing his he was resident there every month. I think still then God's Kitchen was open every week, believe it or not. Yeah, I mean, well, we can believe it, can't we? Because we're that age where, you know, venues were open every week, and I think Gatecrusher and Cream and God's was open every week at that time. And then in around 2007, I started my production journey. Well, the first part of it anyway. I bought Logic 7, Logic Pro 7, and it was, and it you know, I was just very obviously just got it and just wanted to. I didn't do a lot of learning. I just tried to pick it up myself. Logic is very kind of, anybody who knows Logic Pro is a bit of a daunting when you kind of first open it up, like any door, I suppose. And you just kind of trying to speak to people on you know, on social media, just trying to get some tips on how to get started, really. And yeah, and I think then I got to about 2008, and then we were 28, 29 at the time. Me and my friend were hosting some nights, some club nights in Cannock and surrounding areas, and we were getting a bit of experience playing out. Not many people were coming, you know, but we just like organising these events, you know, and then my friend actually got in touch and said, "Do you want to play down in London with Basement Jacks?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I couldn't believe it. We've gone from playing in Cannock on a Sunday night with 6 people there to getting a gig supporting Basement Jacks. It was unbelievable, and it was a Brixton Jam, 2009, I think it was, and where we played just after them. We played an hour each. And he was amazing. A DJ, he was playing drum and bass, he was playing house, he was playing breakbeat. It was an amazing set. And then the venue was amazing as well. It's like a big house. If you've ever been in Brixton Jam, it's like a big house, and it's just very kind of really, there's a lot of character to it, you know. And just straight after that gig, literally, we were asked by one of the guys there if we'd like to play at Ministry of Sound, which obviously we said yes. We didn't really believe him. So he said, "Yeah, you can play in the loft." This is unbelievable day for us, yeah. And he says, "Honestly, here's my details, and you can play on the boat parties as well." So we electronic sessions, that was. Anybody who's played in London or, you know, knows the scene, I think they're still going, actually. They had one of the nights was called Plastic Fondue in the loft in the Ministry of Sound, and yeah, we played there and actually got invited to a couple of more gigs after that, but unfortunately life got in the way and I had to work abroad. And yeah, my friend managed to make the gig, but I still can say to this day, you know, I played at Ministry of Sound in London. Also had a couple of gigs on the boat parties for electronic sessions. Dave Seaman was on there, you know. Warmed up for Max Graham. That was probably my finest hour, really, of you know, nice, notable DJs. Yeah, that was great. And it's just that was such a good event, those boat parties, because you just go up and down the Thames and you just have a good drink and a good party, you know, upper and lower deck, and it's great. It's great. 6 hours, and then they have the after party at MOS. Yeah, so that was about 30, 31. And then, yeah, just after that, I'd got a bit more into a production, but I wasn't confident on. Well, I couldn't really I couldn't get anything signed, so I did some kind of collaboration and got a track signed with somebody under my name on Tactile Hots Records. It was. Actually, the guy is really talented. The one who owns the Tactile Hots, he used to do write for adverts, for the advert notably, and things like that. So that was interesting experience. But I was still eager and dedicated to you know, to releasing on my own. I was so committed, you know, and just to keep that going. And just, you know, I wanted to release an album one day on my own, you know, just you know, it was nothing to do with making money. It was just to make, just, you know, my own kind of ambitions, really. Not fussed about getting anywhere. It was more of, you know, just want to get better and enjoy it.
I guess a burning question when I talk to guys like yourselves who are into it, you know, is were you creative? You know, either of you, were you creative? Is this a thing that happened, or was it the scene that so encompassed you at the right time at the right age that propelled you forward into kind of, once you started DJing, you then look at other areas? You know, I guess I'll throw that question first to Gareth, because obviously we're having an interview here. We're going to talk about you guys having a record label. And for a lot of people, they just go clubbing, they try DJing, and they sack it off. But, you know, you guys clearly are taking this a stage further each time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. I mean, like I was just thinking then, listening to Steve talk, and thinking about what was the catalyst. I mean,
Yeah.
when it started at the very beginning, coming back with those records from Ibiza, and I still remember the first time I used to have a mini disc player. Remember them, the old mini discs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were like revolutionary, weren't they? It's like,
Yeah.
this is a CD player that doesn't skip when you're walking down the street. But I remember I would record onto that, and then I would go for a walk after and listen back to my mix, and you know, it was, you know, half a train wreck back or something like that. But then I remember hearing the first time I ever did a really solid mix, like in the mix. I remember I was scared to touch it. Like I was scared to touch the decks for fear of ruining it, you know. And I still remember now it was Steve Lawler Rising and Chemical Brothers, It Began in Africa. So two quite tribal tunes on top of each other. And I just, that moment, that was the hook for me back then.
Clicked. Clicked.
That's when it clicked. So then I was like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get better decks. So I got Technics and started exploring much more. I mean, it was progressive house was a massive influence then as well. But then a friend introduced me to logical progression and the Good Looking Records side of the Bookham kind of drum and bass stuff, which I was absolutely hooked on as well. So that allowed me to kind of start getting into different style of mixing altogether, you know. So I do remember that being a major catalyst. Was dabbling on Cubase, and I think it was Reason 2.5, had a cracked version of. So I was like, oh, I'm quite interested in this. Not particularly good at it because I don't have any musical background or any kind of musical training or theory, but the you know, the ideas and the will and the creativity was there, and it always was there. But I didn't really kind of take it to, I was more just dabbling at the time. But if I then think of where things are now, like, I mean, I was away from, completely out of the scene for well over 10 years, like just not listening to the music, unaware of it. So when around sort of 2018 I started listening to stuff again, and then I started getting into DJing a year or so later, I had all of that music from 10 plus 12 years previous that I hadn't heard before. So I was buying all these records, you know. I mean, I remember when I just stopped kind of listening to the music and being active in the scene, some Guy J was just kind of becoming a known name, you know, for example. So all that time passed since. So where I restarted up, the enthusiasm was not just, oh, I still love DJing, but it was all that to me was new music. I was buying these tracks where people like yourself might go, oh yeah, that was a classic from 5 years ago. I'd be like, have you heard this tune? This is amazing. But I'd also be able to mix them in with brand new stuff. So it made the sets quite dynamic in the sense of someone, you know, I was playing older stuff, which was new to me, but also with, you know, the stuff that was being made right now. And there was just so much good music to go through over the last 10, 12 years, well, probably the last 15 years at this point, that it was just so much ammunition to stoke the fires for DJing. Then
yeah, I think reflecting on that, you know, you picked one of my greatest influences in the last probably 15 years is Guy J. And I think when you've come back to the scene, you've come back to a scene where producers started DJing. The difference between people DJing in the 90s, grabbing other people's records and just mixing them, and then suddenly all of a sudden people making their own tunes, playing their own tunes, you know, appearing on somebody's label for a little while, like, you know, Guy J was very much in the Bedrock stable, and then before you know it, he's kind of fully doing his own thing. you know, his sound, the way he mixed records, the technical side of it, it sounded different. The production levels were higher. I think any genuine music fans that have taken it further than just DJing or collecting a bit of records could see that the scene was changing into this much more in-depth and serious side, where people basically, as you said in the beginning, are playing their own music. Almost, if I'm going to DJ, I'm going to play all my own records, or I'm going to do it in a style that you've got no idea what is my record and what is somebody else's, because the music had also moved on, hadn't it? It wasn't tunes you heard all the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't, we'll print it on a record and we'll sell 500 in that HMV and we'll put 500 there. So the whole nation's hearing these records because they've heard them on the Essential Mix or they heard them at the club and then they can find it in the record store. This was all of a sudden going back to, well, what's he playing? What's this? What version of this is he playing? And I don't know for you guys, but that intrigue for me was like catnip. It was like, hang on,
Yeah.
what's he done there? He's playing that bass line and he's trailing on the last bit of percussion and what? And I was hooked on him from the get-go. His first few tunes he released, I think I've got them somewhere. They were like totally different sounding.
Absolutely. It's a great point as well, Danny, as well. I think there's the adage that back in the day you used to have to kind of DJ to promote your music, whereas now you have to make music to promote your DJing and get booked nearly, you know. So it's very much like that, I think. And obviously the technology has come on to a way where, I mean, I was really enjoyed your last podcast with Gav there, and could relate to so much that you guys were talking about there in that particular episode. But like the technology allows so much of that kind of stuff to be done now. Creatively, there's no boundaries nearly, I suppose. There is a lovely kind of notion and feeling of mixing on vinyl and being committed to the mix once that's in, you know. But I mean, I think it is a kind of no-brainer to, like, it's all tools of the trade, you know. They're all tools to be used, and they can all be used in so many ways. You know, you remix a track live effectively these days, can't you?
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, like Steve's point, you know, he's getting to the stage where he's playing at Ministry of Sound and you're going on boat parties, and yet, you know, these things, when they're very much in your social circle, or, you know, you've got an excellent opportunity like you had there, Steve, to sort of go, yep, I'll be down and do it. You sort of even know at the time that what you're doing is exciting. You're not thinking of it as some sort of career and going, right, I've made it. You literally did jump, didn't you? The opportunity sometimes. But tell me, you know, you said there when you were talking earlier, you went and did all that, but then you're going to look at how to make tunes. So what was the sort of changing point for you to go, well, this DJing is happening, but I actually want to explore making it. Just explain that a bit.
I think just going back before I actually got into electronic music, I was kind of, I'd wrote quite a lot of songs on guitar and things like that. And when I wrote a little album on tape and recorded it when I was about 18 or something, 17, which not many people have heard. But you know, I've sung about 11 tracks that I've sung playing guitar. But and I got into, and then after that, I got into electronic music, and wow, that was like a massive wave of, like, you know, what's all this? This is amazing, you know. And I thought, okay, it was always kind of in my head to think, okay, I'm seeing a lot of these DJs here, and it seems like, well, how I saw it, that a lot of DJs were DJing and then get to a stage where they'd start writing music. So that's what kind of path I kind of thought, well, this seems like a good path. I've kind of think I can write tracks, but I think I need to get into the scene a bit more and get tuned into the scene, you know, from like in indie days, and build it up that way. And then when I think the opportunity's right, I'll, you know, have a stab at it. And yeah, so it kind of transpired like that, really, of like yeah, just learning as much DJing as possible, and learning how tracks are structured, and the vibe, you know, what the music gives off, and then kind of going, after I've got the experience under my belt of listening to DJ sets and electronic music, the patterns and melodies are formed and progressions, and then I think I thought, well, yeah, I'm a fair level now to kind of go, you know, get into production. So that's kind of how I looked at it. I was always thinking I'm always going to get into production, and you know, I think I've got something there what I can offer. Just what I've learned on playing on a guitar, you know, and learning Oasis songs, you know, when I was 15. You know, that's how I kind of use that a bit of confidence, more confident than kind of DJing, to be honest. DJing was like a night out for me, you know, like a great time to have a social event and go to London, you know, the day for the night and do all this. But I thought it's more of a confidence thing as well. It's like thinking, well, I'm not going to get, you know, that far into DJing. You know, it takes up a lot of your time. You know, and I had almost a child on the way and things like that. I thought, you know, to be a DJ, you know, where you're going to make money and stuff like that, you kind of need to just chuck your whole life into it. So I thought, well, production is something where you can just be at home and just kind of really kind of, you know, excel at home, if you like, rather than, you know, having to go all out, trying to push yourself everywhere and to everyone. You can just please yourself at home and just really kind of focus on that, locking yourself in. Yeah, so it's kind of, it's still what I'm doing now, really. Yeah, just like still like locking myself in these days and taking myself, you know, on a music journey, whatever mood I'm in. So yeah, that's how it kind of patterned out for me. Now I'm 42.
I mean, I guess the obvious question here, you know, listening to both of your different accounts of where you've come from, you know, 100% both music enthusiasts, slightly the same path at some point and then slightly different. You know, for guys listening to this podcast who don't know you two, you know, this really naturally leads us on to the bit where somehow in all this different stuff, living in two completely different places, you two have somehow met. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, it's very taken for granted these days that people can meet on social media, but actually that's not how most people meet. So how did you guys actually meet?
So we met at ADE in 2019 on the Modern Agenda boat party, on which they do on a Sunday, as their kind of own party with ADE going on as well. And I look back and laugh at this party because at the time, as I said, I was blissfully unaware of so much that has happened in the last decade or so in terms of artists, producers, DJs. I mean, there was still the established people around I knew, but that boat was just, there was about 50 people on it. And I mean, you're talking Camilo Sacramente and Sub Andrio and Robert Babich and Nick Muir all playing, you know, and sure, the only one I knew at the time was Nick Muir. You know, like, so this is how kind of out of it I was at the time. But I met Steve there, and I met lots of people. You know, I met Lindsay Whitwam there. I mean, Nadia and so many people there. I mean, you know, Gavin and Matty were there, like, and for GMG and Matta, they were there, and a lot of the Australian crew. And again, I didn't know who these people were, but you knew just by talking to them. Everyone was so sound lovely and wanting to talk about music, and you just had this feeling in the back of your mind that, God, I really feel like I'm talking to someone quite significant in the scene here, you know. But they're so also down to earth and easy to talk to that you know, you wouldn't know it. And you know, so many people, Ian Dillon as well, like it goes on. But anyway, like we met there, and coming back fully inspired from ADE. Everyone stayed in touch, as we do. Everyone seemed to be kind of throwing themselves into whatever music they're doing, their DJing, their production, and everyone seemed to really be growing in their own little way, and we all stayed in touch. And I said to Steve that, like, I would have played a lot of Steve's tunes as I was putting mixes out regularly. You know, Steve under the Land Mammal UK guys, I would always really like playing his tracks. I found them really nice to kind of mix with other records. And, you know, I'd often tell him that, and Steve would send me more. And we got talking more and more off the back of that and the initial connection. And then I said to Steve, like, you know, he was at a stage where he was sitting on, you were probably sitting on tracks, mate, weren't you? Like, you had a lot of tracks made, and I sort of threw it out there. I said, you should, you know, why don't you start your own kind of label, and then you can put your music out under your terms, not adhering to other people's kind of styles and preferences and timelines, and you can then move on to your new projects and not be weighed down by trying to, you know, get tracks out there that you've already made. For me personally, I'd only just kind of got Logic at the time, and I was like, I would like to try to take this a bit seriously, but this will give me a motivation to stop being just a hobbyist and stuck in loop land every time I try to make a track, and just have proper commitments that I have to meet now. So it will help me grow, and it will also allow Steve to get his music out there that he already had, and more ideas that were brewing. So it was something that was going to help us both grow, even though we were at different stages, particularly in the production journey. It was beneficial to both of us, and we worked quite well together in the sense of, it was very easy to, it just kind of fell into place of, like, you know, we both have, as every partnership does, one person has their strengths that they apply more in a certain area. You know, I maybe networking, and then the other person is, you know, more proficient at a business side of things or marketing. And yeah, it was just an opportunity to really kind of just start getting our own music out there. But using this opportunity, for me anyway, I found myself, I was like, I'm now connected with all these people that years ago, if you told me I could even call them acquaintances, let alone friends, I would have been so chuffed. So why not just be part of it? You know, for me, it gives something back to the scene that gave me so much over the years. And it's not for want of trying to become anything or be anything. It's just keep stoking that passion that's inside us. But the label does give us a very set, targeted way of finishing projects and growing and helping other people have an opportunity to get their music out as well.
I mean, I guess the thing that I'm picking up here from you boys is that, you know, not only really have you obviously got this burning passion individually, there's a little bit of serendipity where you've met on this boat, and you've met on this boat with all the right people. I mean, like you said there, you've mentioned some names that now, to us guys on the certainly on the underground scene, know exactly who each of those people are. I mean, it would be an understatement to say I've probably got every single Camilo San Clemente remix and track since the very first heard a track. It is just his work rate, his production level, the way he thinks, him and Da Beat, JMJ, the Australian boys. You know, you haven't just met on a random boat. You've landed on the next gen, really, of the prog scene there. And you know, I think, like Steve with his kind of like luck in getting a gig, there is a lot of luck in this scene, isn't there? There's a lot of hard work. There's just phenomenal amounts of hard work. But without those bits of luck or the serendipity of meeting in the right place and speaking to the right person, you could, and millions could, end up a fantasist in your own bedroom creating nonsense, you know. there has to be an element where it becomes real. Either you are really speaking to people, you are really producing something, or you are DJing out or promoting. So we've sort of jumped forward and sort of, for I guess narrative ease, you both decided, right, we're gonna put a record label together. Predominantly you say to put your own stuff out, which makes total sense. You know, after speaking to Gavin last week, or on the other podcast about releasing things through different people, the complexities of that, producing stuff, the complexities of remixing, doing work. There's not a lot of money in it. You can spend a lot of time. Just so the listeners are aware, you guys both have jobs as well, right? Normal jobs, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on, Steve.
Yeah, just but I think we're both extremely busy as well at the moment. We've not just got 9 to 5s. I think there's Gareth's doing a lot of college work, which is, you know, and he's which is spending many nights, and I've got a pretty busy job where it's and it's taking up a lot of my 10, 12 hours a day sometimes, you know, from 7 till 7 or something like that, whether I'm working at home or the office. So yeah, I think the weekends are absolutely precious for me. Like a Saturday morning is when I'm firing on all cylinders and I can get kind of things caught up to date, you know, and get things get things going and get back to people. Even sometimes in the week it's just like, you know, it seems too much. It's that passion though, isn't it? Still, you know, it's there, that determination, because we've got aims, we've got visions, you know, where we want to take the label. We think it's totally surmountable, you know. We'll just keep building. But yeah, we've got full-time jobs, and it can be difficult, but so the weekends are very precious indeed, the Saturdays and Sundays.
So how do you guys sort of, I mean, you mentioned earlier, you know, you dip into each other's sort of skill sets. You know, Giddy, you mentioned kind of like one of you might decide that you're going to take on kind of one sort of side of it, maybe the marketing or kind of the strategy side. So how, with balancing everything that you've got going on, what kind of, I don't mean targets like necessarily financial, but what sort of strategy targets do you have? Little meetings where you think, right, we're going to produce X amount of tunes this year, or we're going to get the label to release this, or we're going to look at these artists, or we're going to try and get new people on. What's kind of your strategy balanced on top of time issues, things that are pressing?
Well, I think we're quite lucky in the sense that we're like we have regular catch-ups, and we have, I think there's a lot of trust there, because one of us says, "Oh, I'm going to do this," you just kind of know that they're going to do it and get it done, and we don't kind of put pressure on each other to, you know, for deadlines, or have you done that yet, or sending a message and expecting an instant reply, because you just have to appreciate people have got stuff going on in their lives, you know. I mean, we do this, I mean, I do the DJ, and like, I mean, I do part-time college as well. I've got 2 young kids, so you know, it's all a balancing act. You know, we end up having way too many late nights fitting it all in. But like we tend to reach out to people separately that we perhaps want to work with, that we might have an existing relationship with, or trying to build that, and even the sense of listening to tracks that come in to consider, like we were talking about this the other day, how if one of us says, yeah, it's kind of all right if you want to listen, then I'm kind of not really interested that much already, because if you're not excited about it, then it's going to be quite likely that I'm not going to be that excited about it as well. Whereas if someone said you need to listen to this track now, then it's like, stop the press and let's have a listen to this. But we kind of take on, I mean, we never really sat there and sort of designated certain roles. I think we just kind of gravitated towards where our natural selves and our natural skill sets as we do. I mean, it's just kind of about, like, a great thing about doing this as well is it really gives you a reason to properly engage with the people that we know, other than just the general social side of it. You know, it's fantastic to actually be able to really talk shop, for example, with either someone who's very established in the scene, you know, people we know, or people that are like, you know, trying to get their music out there, but they're at the point of nearly giving up, and then through a conversation you can go, you know what, send it to us, let's have a look, let's bring that track to life, let's get it out there. And one of the visions we have for the label is, I mean, it's great to have established kind of named artists on there, which everyone strives for, but there's so much more of a sense of satisfaction in if you get someone unknown or someone who just hasn't had their break out there. That's where we'd really like to kind of focus a good bit of effort in, is discovering new talent, you know, because it's a saturated market. There's lots of established labels, and there's lots of people who kind of work in certain niches and circles. So yeah, I guess it's kind of grown very organically over between us.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I quite liked that you said is something that I'm finding working with Richard, Richard Trout, who, you know, not only a similar sort of background to Steve, actually, when we did his podcast together. I've known Richard a few years now, but didn't know really the full extent of his story. And he'd been in a band for like 20 years, you know, and there's different sides of a person's personality that can handle different things at a different time and got a different take on it. Even though that what you're doing is a joint project, you're right, your skills and strengths kind of work together. One of the things that you said that I liked was how easy you found it to work together, because for me with Richard, that's pretty much one of the things, is we can say what we need to say to each other. We don't need to sugarcoat it. We can say how it is. We can be quite objective. You know, we rarely disagree about things, but we take on board each other's point. There's a calmness as well to him. I've got quite a lot of more nervous kind of energy in doing things. But what I've found, certainly in the last 6 months, we're doing this project together called Early Doors Club, but we also do the progressive house thing a little bit more together, and he's got separate projects, is that, yeah, when we say we're going to do something, we do it. So why I'm saying this is, what I find is when the two of you can really budge things forward, because if you are working independently but then together, what you find is you're galloping ground quicker, and you also get to share your problems together, right? It's not all doom and gloom. You have a bit of crack, you have a bit of a laugh, and you know, you go away, you have your separate lives, and it is like it's an odd sort of marriage, really, of two people, because you're dedicating time to each other. You know, it's like, I've got to go and have this call, and you go upstairs to your room, and you talk about things to each other. So it's really nice to hear this, because, you know, conversely for Gav, a lot of stuff that he's dealing with is in his own head. You know, he's moving pieces. He too's got a partner. I think it's Andy Waldron, albeit in another country. And what I'm finding is that when there's two of you, it's a better space for your mental health, for being realistic, perhaps financially as well, because, you know, there's not as much burden to try and make everything happen. One of you might be struggling with certain things, the other one can take it on. So it's no surprise, and it's nice to hear you both working in this way, and how naturally it came about. I mean, I guess, you know, you've mentioned a few things there that I'll pick up on. Things like trying to get people to the next stage, perhaps in their careers, or maybe getting things that you think is right for the label sound. Talk to me a little bit about kind of where you see your sound, because you've both mentioned quite a few different influences there. Be it drum and, I mean, I was a massive Buchan fan, massive LTJ Buchan fan, still am. You know, there's a lot of elements of drum and bass or that type that I hear pieces of in my progressive styles. You know, I borrow and beg and mix different sounds together. When you own a label, how do you try and keep it fresh, keep the sound moving forward, quote unquote, like Bedrock has a sound, Lost and Found has a sound, All Day I Dream, how do you guys work on saying, right, this is us, but we do still want to borrow from different aspects, I guess?
I think it's kind of first it's what you hear the track, you can hear a track and you can instantly make a decision on whether you like it or not, and there isn't really any preconceived ideas really on music, is there? So it's our kind of strategy, if you like, towards music. It is just is a kind of a wide spectrum, really. We've got like this kind of, I talk about like this 80% threshold where, is it kind of is it up there production wise? Is it got the artist, like has it got the artistic
criteria, like a criteria, if you like, that you sort of judge it against?
Yeah, but again, it comes to like, do you instantly like it? Do you have to keep listening to it, or the things that, and I don't like really going back to an artist and saying, can you change this or change that? I only think I've done it once, and it was something that was very obvious to me and Giddy, to be honest. And because the artist has put a lot of hours, into creating their own music, and if they could just say, well, if I don't like it, if we don't like it, then he can take his music, to somewhere where that they will appreciate it for him. I wouldn't want to ask an artist to change their track too much or anything like that. We try and work with them, and yeah, I mean, releases wise, we mainly well, there's progressive house with that sound, house, progressive house, and more of an ambient style where we and breaks kind of sounds. Well, we release on an album, and we release a compilation album with prog house as well, once a year, which we may get to later on. But yeah, we're not really sticking to any genres. I mean, it's you look at large labels these days, perhaps Andrew Deep or something like that. They've really expanded from a progressive house label in the late noughties. They were very progressive house based, and then they kind of evolved into what they are now. With a lot of electronica going on, and we kind of we looked at that model a little bit and thought, well, yeah, that's just the way our minds go as well, without any preconceived ideas.
Can I ask a question about that? This may be just like industry sort of grapevine or whatever, but I remember when I was talking to somebody a while ago about Anjuna Deep, they told me that the reason that the records sound so similar is they almost have an engineer house. So you produce a track and I would send it in, they would polish it off. Is that correct?
Yes, I know that they used to. Well, I know they used. I was told about 3 or 4 years ago that you'd send a track to Anjuna, if they like it, then they would ask not just to master it, but they would mix it down as well, and then they'd master it. So they'd have some their own studio with 1 or 2 people who'd be doing this, so it's consistent. I know an artist who I used to get along with. I don't see him much these days, and he was telling me that that's what they said. We need all of your stems, because we basically master all the tracks together, rather than just one track. So but I spoke to Marsh, and he actually did his own mastering. So I think there's a bit of confliction in what's happening these days, but I know it did used to happen. Yeah.
I think when the labels started, I would argue, because I do remember it sort of becoming more of a force in the kind of sound. Certainly they were one of the first to kind of really catch on to putting stuff onto YouTube, and I think that's how I majorly discovered a lot of their music, is because they were putting a lot of stuff on YouTube. And my ears have always obviously been pricked up to sound. I'm similar to you guys, and we've talked about this with the DJs, where you give me like literally a couple of seconds of a track and I can just say no, yeah, no, yeah, no. It's very rare that I would hear something and then my brain would say just go back to that and listen to that again. It's almost like you say there's a criteria in my head, in my ears, that can hear what I want to hear. And sometimes that's maybe brought on by I'm thinking of a sound. If I'm going to create a mix or I'm going to play somewhere, I'm thinking of a sound that I want to design for that venue or that listener. And that might probably sway what I'm looking for. But when things like Injuna Deep came, and I was just switched on straight away to going, all sounds the same. And I guess with record labels, when you think of record labels, you know, traditionally a record label would be something you'd think more about, like pop or rock music, and they would get these very different bands and the bands would sound completely different. When you think of record labels, Stock, Aitken and Waterman, all their music sounded the same. The artist was different because all the music was being produced by them. And there's this like little tiny gap, isn't there, where clearly the brand, what somebody wants from their label / business, it's very much about a formula. We need a formula. Big businesses use formulas to get things perfect in a box. You need a formula. You know, I've worked for massive brands and it's all about that brand. Does this sound represent our brand? So I guess for you, I mean, the question is obvious. As an independent record label, how important, you've mentioned it a little bit there, how important is it to you that when an artist comes on board, they have control over what they've produced? You know, do you just give them advice, or would you say, look, let's work together on this to make this the best track we can and make it sound the best it can?
Yeah, 100%. It's very important to us to engage fully with the artist, and like, it's their art they're putting forward, it's their creation, it's their art. And like, I know from talking to various people who've had lots of releases on lots of labels, and it's surprising to hear about the amount of hoops that they've asked to jump through to get their work out, effectively sounding like they're actually asking the artist to do all the work you'd really expect the label to be doing, if not hugely assisting with. To the point where, you know, I would have these conversations and the other person involved would be like, my God, why am I doing this? You know, why am I bending over backwards doing this, changing that, seeing that? Like, it's sad to see, because, you know, I suppose it's the nature of the beast. You know, if big established labels, they can play to their own tune to some extent, quite a big extent probably. For us though, it's about engaging with the artist, nurturing their work, making sure that they're happy with the way that we're going to put it out, and like it like even had it said to me that someone was surprised that I was even discussing with them about putting their track on a different release to the one we'd initially planned on putting it on, because we felt it would work much better on this other release, as did they when we discussed it with them. And they were like, it's quite refreshing to speak to someone who's really involving me in this decision making process. And that, just to me anyway, shows that there's a lot of you know, there's a lot of cutting the artist out of the process of their own material, in terms of how it is going to end up sounding, or how it's going to be released, or just being told to sit on it for months and months on end. And then when they get around to releasing it, I know for a fact that a lot of artists, they don't even want that to be put out anymore, because they've progressed.
Yeah, they've got better.
And they don't want to hear that track going out now, because they're at a better stage, or maybe they've gone down, you know, their taste has swung in a different direction or something like that, you know. So it's really, for us, really hugely important to fully engage with the artists that are going to release on the label, and that's just seems natural to us, to be honest.
So do you guys tend to have like a a steady stream of what in marketing I would call sort of leads, where people are contacting you, sending you stuff. You're also sort of going out and working with other people that perhaps you've heard stuff and think, yeah, we want them. I guess what I'm trying to ask or trying to work out is the scope of how much stuff you're dealing with. You know, would you be spending a certain amount of time looking for new artists, or would you just like close the door and go, right, we've got 10 people working with it, like we need to work out where we're getting each of these people first? Because I work for an entertainment agency now. We've got 75 different individuals, and you know, you've got to manage them all and their workflow and promos for photographs and video shoots, and you know, some of them are super busy, some of them aren't as busy as they want to be, and within that they might be coming up to a point where they want to change their act a little bit, so they start to say, oh, what else could I do? And then you find you're consulting with them, and you know, so when you've got this stable of artists, how do you manage them against maybe, you know, your better judgment of saying, if we don't keep our eye on the future and more people coming in, we could miss people? I guess that's the point. When do you say, right, we're full?
Well, let me go back to the start, really. I mean, the label was born in when was it? June last year. So
yeah,
you think from June last year until end of March this 2023, we've had quite a spike in how artists have contacted us, and also being able to pull in artists as well. I mean, when we first started the label, we reached out to all of our artists, you know, because that's and just people close to us, you know, friends released and things like that. So, and that's one of our visions as well, you know, keeping it quite close and keep, you know, so we can build with these artists around you, you've got familiarity with. So yeah, it evolved from reaching out to then literally, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, I actually spoke to a few other labels similar, and I kind of have set up an alliance with them to kind of, if some tracks don't fit their philosophy, then or style, whatever you want to call it, then they could send them on to us, and then vice versa. So we got a bit of a deal going. We've got that with 2 or 3 labels at the moment. One quite big label who have quite a lot of tracks coming in. But yeah, we have, and then we sent out a video of just reaching out on social media, where we want to give the opportunity to, you know, singers and anybody in the industry really who'd like to work with us, because, you know, if a singer gets in touch who's got some you know, some vocal lyrics she wants to put on a song, then, you know, we're more than welcome to allocate and write a song with her. So it's not just, you know, we don't just want it to be kind of a machine. We want it to be kind of a human thing like it, where we're actually got a good relationship with these people, building good business relationships. And yes, we're now getting what is it, Gareth? I mean, a couple of 1 or 2 tracks in every couple of weeks or something like that we get in, which is quite good now, and that's an organic, natural progression since we started last June. You know, it's good to be thought of, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because I think one of the early strategies we kind of put in place for the label is we wanted to keep it diverse. We didn't want to just be a prog label, for example. Like we sort of set about 3 kind of branches of having the EP releases, very DJ orientated EP releases, 2-3 track EPs, remixes on it, etc. Then we wanted to do a VA sampler, which this is where we kind of utilized our friends and connections that we have to get people that we all know in the underground scene and I was so chuffed that they all sort of said yes, that everyone we asked, from I mean, Sean McClellan and Ian Dillon and Ranj and Daryl, Craig Palin, like lots of people that we were really, really delighted to have on, and we felt that would give us some credibility essentially as an emerging, like, oh, who these two lads starting a label, but at the same time we didn't want to rest on the laurels of just being like, oh, because we now know producers, we can just get them to make tracks and release them. It's a great springboard, but we also wanted to look different regions around the world. We didn't just want UK producers. We wanted to look at the States, South America, to get different styles of music on there, and also it's a wider reach. There's different, it's the markets are very different between, the UK is not what it was for this scene, but as we all know, but it was very much kind of not just relying on the people that we know, which is fantastic and we love them to pieces and we'll always want to work with them, but we also really want to take it upon ourselves to go out there and find people that maybe people haven't really heard of before, and get their music out there, whether it's a new style or whatever. One of the other avenues we had is, apart from the VA sampler, which was more house and prog orientated, we wanted to have another direction, which we're doing through a series we call Habitual, which is essentially just not 4/4. It's ambient, electronica, breaks, drum and bass, just a real blank canvas type thing that is partly for us because we're both into that ourselves, but also to give that platform to people who might be known for making house and prog, but they're actually maybe experimenting with ambient and they just don't really have an avenue to put that stuff out there. Yeah. So those initial kind of branches that we put in place, that's how we hope the label to kind of grow in those different directions.
It's really interesting. Like one of the major reasons that I started this series was that what was happening in my case is I had Progressive House UK, and it was born out of seeing content going on different people's groups and seeing how those people responded, and also from my element of being a DJ rather than a fan and going on and being a fan on these groups was like, well, hang on, that for most of what I do, jobs that I'd had in hospitality, hotel industry, in marketing, is all about communications, collaborations, working with different people. And originally, like Progressive House UK, I've mentioned this on another podcast, I had this burning desire to create content and share this content with people. Yeah, and maybe a bit of nostalgia to get people talking about certain things, but not always talking about the same Sash and Digweed album that you always saw on all these progressive groups. I was like, and originally came up with the name Progressive House UK because similar time actually, Giddy, that you got back into it around 2017, 2018. I'd stopped playing a lot of sport that I was doing, and I found myself having more time, free time to do different things. I'd always been into the music. So there's never been a gap in the music, but in terms of my involvement in it. And one of the sort of things that sometimes I always hark back to is I never sat down and had a proper plan of what I was doing. And, similarly engage different people, work with different people to initially get things going. And like we said at the beginning of the conversation, it's 4 years literally around this time that I started this. The amount of people that I've met is just incredible. And the amount of collaborations, symbiotic relationships, different nationalities, that you're involved with when you're in this scene in your different parts, it's incredible. It's probably the reason why I've kept going. And this podcast series was because I recognized that I was spending all my time on my own in my own head. I wasn't actually talking to other people. part of the issue is I live in Newcastle. It's not near anywhere. You know, the nearest next city really is sort of 2 hours to Leeds. And we were going clubbing in Liverpool and Manchester, and this is where I was meeting people in the scene, like face to face meeting them, and being like, oh yeah, wow, you know, this is great to finally meet up. But of course we had online. We always now are used to having online. And I think what was happening to me was I wasn't talking to people. And I certainly wasn't talking to people like this from different areas of the thing that I love so much. And you know, it's very easy, like I said earlier in this chat, that you can get lost in your own head, either by way of making tracks that you think are great, not going out enough and listening to tracks very loud, as in when you hear a track in a club, it's nothing like it is in your earphones. When you go in your garage and you do a mix, if you've got rockets, they're not going to sound like they are if you've got a sub and a fucking, you know, putting it on in your car, if you've got a decent car stereo. And all these sort of things add up to kind of where your musical knowledge is. But none of it works without working with other people or collaborating or chatting, because it can be a lonely space. And I think what I'm saying here is that it's the people that have driven me to keep wanting to do this, because we all, like you, are dedicating time to talking to different people, being enthused by the music. You know, you should always still have that joy, shouldn't you, where you listen to a piece of music in a day and you just go, oh, if only I could ever do it as good as that, or that is just, you know, perfect. Whatever the genre is, whatever the context, whether it's on a film. You know, I studied film at uni, so a lot of the time when I watch these ITV dramas, the drama might be pap and I've seen the storyline a million times, I've worked it out in a second, but the ident or the theme or the music that they've got, I'm like, do you know what, I'm gonna keep listening because I love the score of this. But I guess for you guys, the vision you've got at the moment, you've been going, what, about, like, did you say last year you started? What is the end goal? Because this is something I struggle with all the time. I'm like, or not maybe so much the end goal, but what are your metrics to success? What would you...
I'm going to let Steve answer this one properly, because I'm just going to start by saying I'm very much a kind of a journey and not the destination kind of guy, you know. So again, it's probably another reason why we work well, because otherwise I would just be kind of happily going around in a lovely creative circle with no real kind of end game in plan, just kind of enjoying the whole journey and experience as it goes. But perhaps Steve has an end game in sight.
I think Gareth's right there about music being a journey, and if you ever feel like, you know, you're not in the moment with something, or you're feeling a little bit down, it's good to listen to the music anyway, because, you know, you listen to that journey and you can only listen to what is going on right at that time. You're not listening to the end of the track. So just on that, I think an aim, really, if you call it an aim, it's to put out, keep regular releases at a consistent rate. You know, just keep building, on. I mean, I do the artwork and just want to keep getting better at the artwork and have different ideas and make it as interesting as possible. And with actual branding as well. That was one of the things when I started the label with Gareth. You know, it was important to build, get the branding going. So the branding will evolve with the artwork. It's just evolving at a steady rate. Just picking experience up and advice, you know, things like that. Along the journey, I think in terms of actually promoting the label further, I think, you know, we've got an event next month, so it's kind of looking at things like that. You know, we're a brand that requires marketing, so, you know, how do we make the brand more aware, you know, and find those different avenues. This podcast, is one of these avenues, which has been
absolutely
a real good opportunity for us to just talk about things right now, and with someone like yourself. So that's one of you kind of you tick that off, kind of thing, and it's to say that we've, so yeah, it's just going along at a steady rate. Long as me and Gareth are happy with things, then we will, I'm sure we'll attract the things, and they'll come naturally. Don't force things, don't try and, I mean, things like, we could have a relatively large artist, popular artist, sorry, but maybe having to pay him for a couple of tracks to release, that's something we just would not want to do. We don't want to get too big like that and sell out, and then what do you do after that? If we had a fairly well-known artist, and then somebody like myself releases it, after, we don't want to give off the wrong message, if you like. We want it just to be an organic journey, and there's the scope to do that, and then just keep building slowly.
I think, like, for us, it's really about, like, we never went into this to be competitive. It's never a word that entered our minds, like competing with people, like collaborating and contributing. They're the words that come to my mind when I think about this whole project. It's about an opportunity to collaborate with, kindred spirits, other people who are passionate, learning from them. And it's not just learning technically, it's, you want to work with good people as well, and that will just, many things are born out of that, the collaboration. And again, it comes back to contributing. Like, for me, it's always about, like, when you're an artistic person, whether you're a DJ or you're an artist painting pictures or whatever, you're giving a piece of yourself to the world, and you're fundamentally doing it for yourself to begin with, because you need to let that out. And if other people like it, fabulous. If they don't, really doesn't matter. Still going to do it anyway. Like, we're talking about DJing, I would still do it with the same vigor and passion if I had one listen a month and that's it, and no one even knew I DJ'd. I would still do it, as opposed to having hundreds and hundreds of, of listens all the time and getting gigs left, right, and centre. We do it because we want it. We don't want to be seen to be doing it. It's just, for me personally, I can't escape it. As I said earlier in the chat, I thought it all passed me by, and the universe keeps kind of throwing me back towards it one way or another, just to play my little role in it. I mean, I'm not going to set the world alight with a hit track that every DJ around the world's playing, or I'm not going to be headlining at the biggest clubs in the world. But I like the fact that when I meet people, they like meeting me, and I like meeting them, and we bring the best out in each other. And the more we all do that, then happy days.
Yeah, I think we've discussed this with a couple of different people, as the real spirit of this, and just to sort of try and explain some of the words we use. When I describe this as underground, I guess this has cropped up a couple of times, is that I don't overtly mean it's not professional or famous. Commercial is commercial. You can be underground and commercial. That's not what I'm trying to say. But the spirit, the sort of ethos of the underground is exactly what you've just said. It's that, to call yourself an artist doesn't mean you have a paintbrush or a pencil and you can draw, a bowl of fruit or a landscape. There's something within you that wants to make, create, share, and enjoy with other people what you do. And the very reason we're talking is because it just so happens that our scene is the same scene, albeit different sides of the coin. I think this is I was coming home from work, thinking about this chat, thinking about a million things on the way home. We've got an event coming up in May. So I always talk to Richard before work or after work. We also talk about what mixes he's doing, where's his show at, how's his ticket sales going for his gig. You know, very quick, like we'll just move from topic to topic to topic. And there's a lot of mind fuzz there. You know, you get out the car and I'm like, right, get home, gonna cook the tea for Emma because Emma's working late, and then I'm doing it. And sometimes it can all just feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. But then I have this chat with you guys, and it reminds me, this is why I love doing this, because this is talking to you guys about something that the listener probably has no idea about how much stuff goes on, or these bits of insight don't alienate the listener. And that's something that I thought was important in these chats, is that you've got a set of skills and you're deploying them on what you're doing. But the ethos of the underground is that everybody can understand that this comes from a place of goodness. It comes from a place of normally, you know, passion. First and foremost, passion. We wouldn't do this if we didn't want to do it and somehow catapult ourselves into doing these things. It's certainly not a financial thing. None of us are millionaires doing this. It's just, it doesn't happen like that. So it's really refreshing to talk to you both about what you're doing, and have this passion. It's like you say, if this is even a tiny little platform for you guys to reach, you know, 400 or 500 people just by doing this, fantastic. For me, it's creating content, which is something that's dear to me. It's why I started Progressive House UK. It wasn't to elevate me into DJing, because I could have just DJ'd. You know, there's something in me wants to create all this different stuff. And similarly to you guys, we're talking about it here as if it's all easy. You've got to get your head around software. You've got to get your head around technology, which is constantly changing. Whether you like it or not, you've got to do some sort of social media, which again has massive complexities. Yeah, and it's just nice to share these stories. I guess the gleaming question, and I've kind of alluded to it there a little bit, is how do you guys protect your mental health? Because I'm not just saying that because this is a buzz topic. It's very real. Mental fitness is not something you can mess about with. You can't just drive yourself into a hole. I've pretty much decided on the way home tonight that what I need to do is put my Wednesday nights aside for all the things I do, instead of doing a bit on a Tuesday, loads on a Monday, some on a Wednesday, this on a Thursday. My head's going to blow up. So how do you guys go, right? There's the goal, there's being normal, there's cooking the tea for my wife or kids or partner. How do you guys go, right, this is where it needs to be?
For me personally, like I live in quite a rural part of Ireland. As listeners probably guessed, I'm not from Ireland, but I like when I have my kids with me, then that's half the time, and when they're here, the computer doesn't even go on. Like it's just they have my attention. Like I'm not on the phone hardly. I'm not, no music, none of it. Once they're gone, because I don't really have any, you know, much of a social life or kind of social distractions going on around me in my locality, I can immerse myself in everything again and come back fresh to it, because I might have had a couple of days off or whatever, because my focus has been on the family rather than on any music or social stuff. If I find myself, perhaps I've been on Logic ages and like trying to get a track finished, or you know, just find myself getting to a point where I need to take a break from that, I'll realize that I haven't been on the decks for a week or two. So I'll go on them and I'm like, oh, I'm more enthusiastic about having a mix again, instead of being like locked into a door for hours on end, you know.
Yeah.
I think just moving from one thing to another, switching off from social media when you need to is a must. I mean, it's a necessary evil, but and I can't knock it, because without it, You know, I mean, it's been hugely important for my mental health, particularly through lockdown, because being located where I am and not having many people around me, like my second family has been the music family online. I would have been lost without it, you know. And it, you know, it's when you don't see people regularly, there's lots of people in lots of situations, and we'll all find ourselves in periods of time where we don't see much of other people. It's nice to remind yourself that out there you have all these amazing friends that, you know, they're out there. Next time you see them and you're in their company, it will be like you saw them yesterday, and they're, you know, they're parked and they're waiting there for you. And it's important to remember they're still there if you ever when you have the low moments where you do feel alone and everything like that. You know people are out there, but it is a balance, and if you're not careful, you can burn out completely. So yeah, I think for me it's very easy to kind of, when I have my kids staying with me, that's it, I can switch off from everything. So it's kind of easy on that aspect, I suppose, to have a yin and a yang lifestyle.
What about yourself, Steve?
Well, yeah, Gareth sounds like he can really manage that, but manage it well. But I mean, I find it difficult to switch off probably every day. To be honest, I don't really. I try, and if it gets too much, then I might switch off for a day, you know, from social media or anything. But it's all about balance, isn't it? I think because I'm just so eager to just to keep the label going. I like to check, you know, messages and Facebook probably every day and keep in touch with people, because we've got quite a lot going on at the moment anyway, with building up for a couple of big releases. So I'm just kind of in conversation every day at the moment. Probably I'd say a Saturday is a good day where you have a bit of rest, and you know, you haven't just been at work, and you then you've got to start, you know, thinking about what you're doing music wise, label wise and everything. So Saturdays are good just to can have a good night's sleep on a Friday and a lie in and things like that, just simple things. But I also, you know, I try to keep myself quite fit and healthy, and you know, eating and exercising and is really important. Very simple, but it's very important, which I try and cram in. So we get my balance that way, I think. Yeah, and it can be a bit of a drain for anybody in social media. So I do try and switch off a large part of the day, but yeah, I find it difficult to switch off because I just like to be involved so much, you know, checking my emails and things like that. I've been doing a few remixes as well of late for other labels, so it's you know, I just
it's just awareness, isn't it? It's just being aware, I guess. You know, you're both obviously, maybe Gareth to some greater extent, but you've both got an awareness, and I think that's what probably 4 or 5 years ago, until this became a more prevalent discussion, people weren't actually aware of what was going on, and then would hit a wall. So certainly for me, I've done a lot of work in the past in this area of very much the industry I've been in. The different jobs I've had have been quite full on. Worked for quite a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, independent business owners. I've never been the big corporate guy, so I've worked for people who've demanded a lot, and also my own personality and drive is kind of like do it till I nearly die. My wife's a bit similar. She can literally run and run and run till she falls asleep, and she's like a machine. It's kind of dangerous when we're both like that, because we don't have kids, which is a huge game changer, but it can mean that you work more. It can mean that you discuss work more. It means that you do all this stuff. And certainly all these extracurricular things, I don't think I would have done so many things had she not had the understanding of maybe what drives me to do this. And I think that was part of that discussion in my head today was, you know, getting time back with her is probably about me doing what you said, Giddy, about putting it into a bit more of a box and actually Wednesday night could be better utilized if I actually was more focused on it. And certainly this chat obviously goes out on Progressive House UK, which helps that. I'm not as needy for putting out my own mixes as I was. Having a club night and promoting that I wouldn't say it's challenging. Richard and I are finding our way with it. We'll come to our second event. It's also a different slight style of music that I play, so it actually is quite interesting to find different music and play different music that's a little bit different than perhaps what I'd played in the past or played when I was just doing live streams or guest mixes. So I guess it's a mixture of being aware of time, keeping yourself interested, but not letting it consume you, because I'm certainly doing more now than I've done in a long time. But the Early Doors Club, the feeling I got in the DJ booth with Richard when he was playing and I was sort of doing the lights was joy, like real joy. And I haven't had that in a while, where I've been I was bouncing next to him, jumping up and down. He was playing a Christoph tune, the music. And that tune in a club is just, it's everything. And at that moment, I was like, this is exactly the combination of all the things I do coming to fruition. You know, a bit of a buzz. So guys, you mentioned there you've got this event coming up. Tell us a little bit about that before we close, because that sounds like something you want to tell people about.
Yeah, so we are doing our first label event in Manchester at the Zombie Shack. So myself, Steve, and Dave Nico will be playing there, and we've got Nadia to come up from London to sort of headline the gig for us. Our good and great friend Nadia. Big shout out to you there, Nadia, if you're listening. She's a superb DJ. I met her on the ADE boat as well, and I didn't even know she was a DJ until I got back. And then I listened to her mixes, and I was like, she was actually a big inspiration into me dusting off those decks and getting them back out, because I was like, oh my god, that's not only my kind of tune selections, but the way she's putting them together. Like, yeah. So when you hear friends doing that, like, it really inspires you. So it was really chuffed that to get her to come up and play at the event with us. Yeah, so we'll be doing this Saturday night. It's we're doing it as a label showcase, and what we kind of intend to do is do them semi-frequently. It's not something we're looking to massively get into as a regular churning out events, you know, a couple a year, maybe 2 or 3 tops a year, I'd imagine, but take it to a different location each time. Because one of the things that we were thinking with the label, it's nice to have, if you're going to have an artist signed to you, it's nice to be able to offer them some other alternative opportunities, like, hey, would you want to play at our event, because we're going to be near you next time we do one.
Yeah,
same
like
as so same as the radio show that we've just started up on Subcode last month, on Subcode Radio. We're doing our second shows this Sunday there, and we're using that as a Steve and Dave played last month. Me and Nadia are going to play on it this Sunday. It's kind of just like a Manchester warm-up, just to give a bit of exposure to people who might not be aware of us. It's obviously, you know yourself, going into it, it's not easy to attract people out to come to these things, especially when we found out Nick Warren's going to play Joshua Brooks on the same night as us as well in Manchester. I'm going up to see him actually in this Skyline the next day at the Soundgarden in Glasgow. So
that's the event in a few weeks, yeah.
Yeah, so he's doing Joshua Brooks on Saturday, the same night as us in Manchester, and then Sunday is the Soundgarden event, which are always beautiful events to be at. So good. But I'll be having words with Mr. Warren there about stealing our thunder in Manchester on Saturday night. But no,
you never know, he might not.
Yeah,
exactly.
In seriousness though, like, our aim for it is an intimate gathering of people, you know, people who like the music, they're into the scene, you know, friends of friends, and getting them to meet each other there as well. You know, this big web of friendships and connections we have, but hardly any of us have met or properly. So it's an opportunity for people to meet there. Like, we will be showcasing some of the tracks we're going to be releasing very soon. Some of the artists there will be coming along, so it's a great way of saying, hey, we're going to be playing your new track, come along, you know, bring the girlfriend and a mate. You'll get to meet the other people that are on, you know, on the release as well, and there's going to, you know, everyone else who's going to be there.
What's the date, Gareth?
It's the Saturday the 22nd of April. It's 10 till 4. It's 5 minutes from Piccadilly Station in Manchester. Nice. 5-minute walk away. So even if people don't want to do like an overnighter or fork out for a hotel, sure. I mean, the trains start up at 5 in the morning, so you get your train back to wherever. Like, it's going to be really, really nice music. It's a small, intimate venue, very kind of, you know, funky out there, graffiti style decor everywhere. Really nice owners as well. Like, we went over there last month just to kind of check in and have a look check out the venue for ourselves. And the guy running the Zombie Shack there, he was just like so sound. His pitch to us was like, my job is to make sure you guys have the best night possible. So when you hear that from the venue owner, you're like, oh, we've picked a good place here to host this. No hassle, you know. And really looking forward to it, because like you were just saying there, I had a big smile on my face there when you were saying about being stood behind the decks with Richard and him dropping that tune, and you're just thinking, this is what it's all about, because this is what this is all about. Like, we just want to get out and play and enjoy good music with good people that we know and love and want to share a dance floor with. You know, there's a lot to be said for looking up and just connected, you know, that eye contact and big smile when a tune's dropping with one of your bezies is, you can't beat that feeling.
yeah, absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But we'd love it. Yeah.
That's the thing is that really, if you wheel this back to exactly where it started, you know, house music, house parties, house breaking out, you know, the scene got unbelievably big and commercial, and certainly in more recent days, the kind of Tomorrowland and all this like over the top stuff.
Yeah,
it's just about an amount of people dancing to good music that they enjoy and having an open mind to listen to whatever the DJ is going to play. I think that is just the very core of it all. And if you can influence that music that's played, if you can choose the people that are there, like you said, invite friends of friends, you've got a party. Richard and I were talking about this, you know, if you've got a venue that holds 100 people and you've got 50 people in there having a good time, that's a party. If you're not doing it because you're trying to make millions of pounds, you've got a party on your hands. 10 people, you know.
It's fantastic opportunity. Sorry, just to showcase, you know, Arbor Recordings music, you know, not just one or two, but many. I think me and Gareth will be playing, and you know, it's a good, it's a great opportunity for us to, you know, to tell everybody that you know there's new music coming out, and it's a great kind of cycle of interaction, if you like, with the radio show, and everybody's kind of feeding into each other, where every avenue's feeding into each other, and yeah, it's quite proud that, you know, we're going to be playing a lot of our artist tracks and exciting a lot of people, you know, and then telling them after that we played their track, or we even telling them before we're going to be playing their track. And yeah, I mean, if anybody said that to me, or Gareth, or whoever artist, I'm sure they'd be absolutely delighted, buzzing. You know, they'd try and get there themselves and hear their own track play, because that's something I've never witnessed. I've never been to a gig and heard my own track play. So, you know, this is the kind of thing we want to do, you know, especially with upcoming artists, and, you know, give them that buzz. We've got an artist who we've just signed, and it's his first ever track, and we love the track, and he's from Manchester, so he'll be coming. And you know, people like that, and yeah, it's just a buzz for people and ourselves, and yeah, we can't wait. We're not far away now, so
Yeah, it's just about giving as well, isn't it? I think we just, we want to, like, we seem to be focused on like giving as much as we can of ourselves. I mean, and for want of nothing back, like at the end of the day, it's enough just to start, like Steve was saying, just to stand on a dance floor and see your friends dance to your music, or see separate sets of friends you have meet each other and get on like a house on fire. There's nothing better than seeing that happen, and to know that they're all here because of this idea you had back in June of maybe just putting a label together, and then one thing led to another, and here we are all stood in Manchester on an April night, dancing under the railway arches, which it's just a nice feeling. And as I say, people that we sign, it's nice to say to them, it's not just about putting your track out. If you're a DJ, we'll give you a slot on our radio show and put your music out there as a DJ. Get known in this part of the world if you're not from the UK, or come to an event and play at the event. It's nice to be able to offer a bit more than just oh, thanks, we'll put that in the Beatport charts and plaster it over social media and then forget all about you. It's not about that.
Just like to be seen, the door's open to anybody who wants to, submit a track in. There's no barriers really. We just listen to it. There's no, as I said earlier, preconceived ideas about what you need to be as an artist. If it's good enough, then then that's it. You don't need followers. You don't need any followers to have music released with us. It's just it's just music and that's it. And we things like that don't bother us. Because things like that will die out, I think, over time. We'll get bored of that. So we would anyway. We don't focus on anything like that.
No, it's all about soul and energy, whether it's the music or the person. If they got soul and good energy, I'm sold. That's it.
Yeah, that's nice. Listen, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you both tonight. I think it's going to be very easy for the listeners to understand and see or hear the energy and the passion you've got for it. And you're very down to earth. I think you're coming from a genuine place. I think that's obvious. And it's been really nice to talk to you both. And like I say, unashamedly, I get something from everything I do. And tonight you've sort of reminded me of a lot of the reasons why I'm doing my little bit in this scene is like you are. I'm trying to talk to people that are busy working away, doing great things, but haven't necessarily had this longer opportunity to talk freely about their passion and about the work they're doing. So thanks very much. I know you're both busy men, and it's been exciting to do a dual situation. Steve and I both know you either do or don't, Gareth. At times you were paused, you had some amusing faces, your camera had frozen. Yeah, at times you look like you were like from the 1980s, like a correspondent in the war, just totally frozen like this. None of us knowing what's really happening behind there. But yeah, thanks again for joining me. And
Thanks so much for having us on.
I'm sure everybody's going to take a lot away from the podcast. So don't be strangers either. Do let us know, and certainly ping me either together or individually, and let me know how your event goes and what's going on. And Progressive House UK, believe it or not, is supposed to be a forum for you to be able to put things up about your gig. So send stuff through to us and get posting on there, because it's been a bit dormant on social media. I know a lot of things have changed with how algorithms work, and we used to be a lot more successful at reaching a lot more people on the platform, but there are still a lot of people read the content, they just don't like or make comments anymore like they used to. But please feel free to use it as a platform to share your event and let people know what you're doing.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's been brilliant being on, Danny, and wish you all the best with this, because you're doing a fantastic job, and I've loved the conversations I've heard previously, and looking forward to the ones to come. So more power to you there, mate.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thanks very much, Danny. Brilliant. Thanks for having us on. It's been a pleasure for me and Gareth, and yeah, great opportunity. yeah, so good luck to you, with everything going forward for yourself, and yeah, best luck with your event, and everything else. So yeah, thanks again.
Will do. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a million. Night.